Anne Marico Rominas from Pepsi. TTI, BPS, Clarence Adrion. Nabasa ko na po. I think that would be all, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Comsec. Mukhang punong-puno tayo ngayon. So good afternoon to everyone, and thank you for joining us in the second TWG meeting. Please excuse me because I can't open my video, mainly because signal is bad, and second, I am under the weather because I had 3 shots of vaccines last night. And I didn't know that the effect would be this this bad to me. So it's actually a protection for the COVID virus. So again, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us. Also to the members for joining us also. So I think we have a couple of presentations for today, and also housekeeping rules. I think Comsec Dilbert already discussed it a while ago. But also in addition to the raise hand function, I think if any of our participants or resource persons would want to comment, they can just actually use the chat function, which is on your right hand side, top right hand side, and just give your intent if you want to comment or ask questions. So without further ado, let's just start the presentations. Comsec Dilbert, who's ready with the presentation? Is it Ma'am Elsie David, who's first on the list? Comsec Dilbert, who's ready with the presentation? Is it Ma'am Elsie David, who's first on the list? Okay, let's start with the government agencies first. Can we request the National Solid Waste Management Committee to present for the TWG?
I think for the briefing,
can we
Mr. Chair,
request the National Solid Waste
prepared
Management Committee
presentation
to present
briefing on the
TWG?
I think for
the
National
Solid Waste.
Yes.
Present
briefing increase.
It will be the EMB who will present the DNR. Yes. And meron din yata presentation si Vice Chair Christian Lau. But kailan ko lang yung DNR, hindi ko lang kumikita. Dami kasi yun Vice Chair Christian Lau.
This would be the briefing on the increased use of single-use plastic during the...
No, sir. Yeah, on the pandemic, sir.
This would be the briefing...
the pandemic, sir. Yes.
Yes.
Okay, sir, siguro I'll give way muna to Vice Chair Christian Lau kung may presentation siya. Then I'm still looking for the EMB personnel namin. Sila ho mag-present na ito dahil pinarush sila kagabi.
Okay, Vice Chair Christian Lau.
Yeah,
you're ready with your briefing.
Thank you. Well, basically, we are depending on the presentation from the data gathered by the EMB. So we actually asked EMB to look into the data from, I think somebody started sharing the screen. But we asked EMB to look into the data, and that will be presented now. So while we are preparing, just to give you an idea, I was looking at some of the data, both from MMDA and from some regions. We have seen we have seen erratic numbers that are coming in. Like for example, let me just have a quick look at my numbers. For MMDA, we were looking at the disposal side. We saw a decline in April disposal and then a slight increase. So basically in Metro Manila, we were looking at about 33,000 cubic meters. That's in March. That dropped to 29,000 and increased again in May. So but the increase has not been up to par with the increase. The increase up to 31,000 cubic meters per day on average for the month of May. I'm not so sure if the EMB is already ready with the presentation, Unfortunately, from the disposal side, we are still looking into how much or the composition of the waste that are disposed of. Um, we have to make to note that the PPEs are separate from all of this because the PPEs that are coming from the hospitals, which has a significant increase, actually is mandated by law to be treated prior to final disposal. So yeah, I don't know if EMB is available.
They're ready now. Yeah.
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 Likha,
Our yeah, Likha will present for DNR EMB.
Yes po, sir.
Okay, please proceed, Ika.
Thanks, sir. May I request the secretary to allow me to share my screen po so I can share my PowerPoint.
Then please. Can you try
okay.
it?
Yes po.
Okay, go ahead, please.
Share. Are you able to see po? Okay.
yes.
So good afternoon, everyone. So I was assigned to provide the group with the DNR perspectives on solid waste management during the ECQ. So I guess the best way po to start the discussion is to look at the immediate actions that were implemented by the DNR when the ECQ was declared, I think last March 16. So the first thing that we did was actually to communicate with the IATF, particularly requesting DILG Secretary to allow waste collection in lockdown areas since strict passage of these vehicles were being implemented at the time. We also requested color coding recommendations to allow the to avoid the mixing of solid waste and hazardous waste. So most especially used in disposable face masks and the like. So yun po yung naging step 1 namin. This was simultaneously supported with public communication naman po on solid waste management. So we released a public advisory advising households on how to segregate their waste and particularly reiterating po how to manage yung waste that may be contaminated. Our priority at that time po was to protect our waste collectors. So this was something that we circulated through Facebook and EMB. This is a sample of yung pinaka important namin na naipalabas na guidance for public. And then to date, this main post was able to reach at least 600 shares, although this does not reflect yung mga intermediate shares from those who reposted yung original post. So we had an internal discussion and then we also supported that with public communication. This slide, I was asked to also show this just to give you a background on what happened during the first part of the ECQ period, since it was really a period of trial and error. So there was a need to clarify what was allowed and to what extent. And for the waste sector, it was the materials recovery facility that had a bit of clarification that that needed further clarification on how it should operate. So later on, we were able to clarify naman po to allow MRFs and junk shops to operate under ECQ if social distancing guidelines were followed. I especially highlighted this kasi later on with the waste, you'll see some trends na may also reflect yung mga ganitong klaseng policies. So yun po. So on the state of waste during the ECQ, I would like to show you how waste trends behaved at that time. So this table, which our lovely friends over at the MMDA were kind enough to share, shows the monthly breakdown of waste from Metro Manila that was disposed for the last 3 months. So as you can see po, the highest volume was on March, followed by May and April. And as you can see, wala rin po talagang trend. And these are actual data, like on the ground. So as you can see, nagpa-fluctuate siya, although figures are more or less close in value. So it's really not a clear trend on what happened and what kind of activities affected this behavior. Ang i-point out ko lang po was that in April nga po, the confusion as to whether junk shops were allowed to operate may have affected the amount of waste that was disposed. So biglang nag-increase nung May. And then the easing of quarantine restrictions on the working population in May may also have affected yung waste consumption patterns. As you can see, medyo tumaas siya from April. Sorry. Can I request control po ulit? Sorry.
Nag-screen share yata yung Melba Gaita. Okay.
Anyway, actually, just to finish that slide, I would like to point out that there are still observations. So since we're still in GCQ, there's really a challenge for us in EMB to actually go down to the field and validate, syempre, for the protection of our personnel din po. So we're really relying on our frontliners, the waste collectors, and the LGUs to really give us the data. Let me can I request po ulit to be able to share the screen?
Go ahead, please.
Thank you. Oh, can I try ulit?
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead, please.
Okay. Okay. So, ayan. There is still a need for us to conduct a more refined study to confirm how the quarantine policies affect the household consumption and waste disposal patterns. And we need to do it in a way that's also safe for us. But we were also talking about this last night sa EMB, and we were thinking, where do plastics come in? And again, we return to our waste composition. But this time, since we're talking about Metro Manila, our analysis is based on a different study that was done by ADB in 2003 that focuses on Metro Manila. And this analysis and characterization study was conducted at the end of pipe, meaning these are all of the waste that have been characterized right before being sent to the landfills. So just to get the average of all of these, just to summarize, the plastics range from 20 to 28, and then the average would be 25. Sorry, just to repeat po, this wax study 2003. So this is a precautionary measure. We're not really conducting wax at this point in time. We're still trying to figure out po how to do it safely. But based on this, if the waste disposed in Metro Manila for the last 3 months was about 10,000 tons per day, that means that the amount of plastics that we have been producing every day since the quarantine is about 29 tons. So this again all goes back to the main point that's always being reiterated by our undersecretary. Its portion, but on its as residuals due to contamination from oil and grease. I'll give you going back to the other slide. This waste po was taken from the trucks that were about to unload this onto the landfill. So ito na po yung parang considered as residuals at the time where the waste analysis characterization study was being done, and they found out that 25% of the waste that's being loaded onto the sanitary landfills are plastics. And may mga ganun lang din po talaga na characteristics ang plastics, particularly those na contaminated by oil and grease from other chemicals, and yung mga materials na mahirap um, what do you call it, ma-retrieve. So, yun po, that's again going back to the whole point of this technical working group meeting. Our concern po for EMB is plastics in terms of its current state, where it makes it inefficient and ineffective for retrieval, or where current arrangements are not yet able to support an efficient or cost-effective retrieval or processing. Yeah, so that's just the gist of the presentation po. I hope you were all able to get something out of it. Yun na po. Maraming salamat.
Okay.
Thank you, EMB.
Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair.
Yusek Antiporter, you going to add some more to that
Yes, sir.
briefing?
Okay, as an addition to the statement of Likha, our very hardworking staff in EMB, our main problem now is the process of the retrieval. No, basically, if we will look at the situation, we keep on trying to find a way how to solve the problem on the single-use plastic, on the packaging materials and everything. But yet it is the effort of the government, and yet the producers keep on coming up with new plastics, new packaging materials without even coming up with the clear retrieval process. So as of now, we encourage the legislative body to help us in obliging the producers to come up with a system that will at least buy back or retrieve all these packaging materials, and even the producers of single-use plastics, to help the government in our effort also, by hook or by crook, coming up with the law that will oblige them to retrieve all these materials. That's all, Mr. Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Yusek Benny, specifically why we have this TWG to be able to find solutions to our problems with the single-use plastics. Thank you for the briefing, DNR. Before we proceed, I'd just like to acknowledge the presence of Honorable Yul Servo Nieto and Honorable Barba. I think our chairperson, Honorable Glona Labad-Labad is already present, and also to Honorable Rufi Biazon. Welcome to the TWG hearing. So if there's no questions for our DNR, let us already proceed to the next presenter. But before we proceed, Yusek, so do you see a decrease in the amount of waste that is being produced while we are all on lockdown in Metro Manila?
No,
Was
sir.
there a significant decrease?
No, sir. Tumaas pa nga siya. For the consumption, tumaas siya, no? But of course, sa production, hindi naman nag-decrease. But we can see the yung production galing sa mga end users natin, itong mga plastic nito, lumaki yung bilang. But basically, wala namang production din. So naubos lang yung mga naka-stock nila, no? But since they're staying at home, yung mga packaging material talaga nagamit.
Okay.
And of course, may issue po tayo, Mr. Chair. May issue po tayo sa hygiene na malaking bagay din po. We cannot say that it is a menace in the society, itong plastic, no? Malaking tulong dito when it comes to hygiene issue, no? Kaya makikita natin na talagang nagamit yung plastic because of this pandemic also. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Yusek Benny. So now let's proceed with the MMDA. I think Ms. Elsie Encarnacion, the director and the head of the Solid Waste Management Office, will be presenting. Ma'am Elsie. If Ma'am Elsie is present from the MMDA. Comsec, is MMDA ready?
Yes, sir, I'm here.
Yes. Please, can you start the briefing?
Yes. May I just inform again the body that MMDA is in charge with the disposal of waste in Metro Manila, the whole of Metro Manila.
Mm-hmm.
So this all comes from the LGUs of Metro Manila. And thus far, it was presented a while ago how much waste are going there in the disposal facilities. So what I would like to say is starting January this year, nagkaroon ng downtrend actually ang disposal. Just a minute, yes. Nagkaroon ng downtrend ang disposal ng waste sa facilities natin. All the while we were thinking na dadami, from January this year, medyo nag-downtrend siya. Ang disposal rate actually ay pumapatak lang ho siya ng 54% of the estimated waste generation. So with that, kung kasi likely, although there is segregation at source in Metro Manila, in a varying degrees of the barangays, may segregation at source. Pero meron pa rin mga contaminated materials. If we're referring to plastics, meron pa rin dumadating talaga dun sa disposal facilities. So, ang ginagawa ng mga disposal operators ay insofar as contaminated, halimbawa yung toxic at hazardous waste, is a policy that they don't accept hazardous waste in the disposal facilities. However, meron silang designated na mga cells. May designated cells sila for these kinds of waste, just in case.
That we should support ABS-CBN in this. I would suggest that as soon as possible, we approve this in this committee and have it discussed in the plenary. And we will ask everybody to support this particular bill. Again, thank you very much at magandang hapon sa inyo lahat.
Maraming salamat po, Congressman Mark Go, sa inyong